Happy September 1st. Today I'm doing my updated 2024 presidential prediction between Kamala Harris, the Democratic nominee and Vice President of the United States, versus the Republican nominee Donald Trump, the former President of the United States and nominee in 2016 and 2020, and of course serving as President from 2016 to 2020. So, this video, I'm going to be going over the electoral map right now for the 2024 presidential election. I'll also be showing some current polls and polling averages at this time and giving my own interpretation and predictions for each state that I go over. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to assign a lot of the states on the electoral map which are currently considered safe, meaning that there doesn't really need to be too much of a discussion. We know how these states will vote. And I'm going to start in the West Coast with Washington, Oregon, and California. We expect all of these states to be safe Democratic, over 15 points for Kamala Harris. There won't be any way for Trump to win these states. Same with the state of Hawaii. Next, we're going to look at the states of Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and Alaska. I think all of these states will likely be 15 points or more for Donald Trump, winning all these states in the safe margin. North and South Dakota will be the same, as will Nebraska at large with its first and third districts. The second district right now is actually a little bit closer, and I think Kamala Harris will win this district, probably somewhere between 5 to 15 percentage points. So Nebraska's second district goes into the likely Republican column. Kansas, I think, will be just barely a 15-point state for Donald Trump. Oklahoma as well, Texas as well. The state of Colorado, I think, will be a safe state for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz at this time. New Mexico, I'm going to come back to because I do want to just talk about that a little bit more. It will be a Harris state, but I just want to talk about it a little bit more in depth. The state of Louisiana will be safe for Trump, as will Mississippi, Alabama, Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia, and South Carolina. All of these states will go safe for Donald Trump. Next to the state of Illinois, that'll be a safe state for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. D.C., Washington, D.C. will be safe for Harris. Maryland will be safe for Harris, as will Delaware. New Jersey, there might have been a time where Trump versus Biden might have been under 15 points, but I don't think that'll be the case now. I think New Jersey will be a safe state, Democratic state for Kamala Harris. New York will go safe for Harris, as will the state of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont. Maine's first district will be safe, and then the Maine state at large I'm going to talk about a little bit more. So all the safe states in this election right now is Kamala Harris at 192 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 165 electoral votes. Now I'm going to go into the states that I think will go for the candidates that I'm like 99% sure the candidates will win, but the margin for being a safe state is over 15%, and I'm just not sure at this time if it will exceed 15% at the end of Election Day. So, for instance, the state of Maine. I think the state of Maine will definitely vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. I think it will be more than a 5-point victory for Harris. I don't think it'll be more than a 15-point victory for Harris in Maine. So that means I'm putting Maine in the likely Democratic column. Similarly, in the Maine 2nd District, this is a district that I think Donald Trump will win. I don't think it'll be less than 50, or I don't think it'll be more than 15 points, but it will be more than 5. So I think Maine's 2nd District is likely for Donald Trump. Also, right next door to Maine, the state of New Hampshire. This is a state that looked like it could potentially be a toss-up, similar how it was in 2020 and 2016. Kamala Harris has been polling recently about 7 or 8 percentage points in most polls that I've seen. That's enough to put it in the likely Democratic column, and I'm not sure the Trump campaign's making much of a play in New Hampshire enough to make it not be a pure toss-up state. I think it'll be a likely Harris state at this time. Next, we're going to go to the home state of Kamala Harris's running mate, Tim Walz, Minnesota, and its 10 electoral votes. This is a state where I'm sure the Trump campaign would love to win this state. I don't really see a possibility for that happening right now. I think it is a likely state for Harris and Walz. Will be over 5 points, will be under 15. That state goes to Harris. That's at 208. Trump is still at 166, but Trump does have a few likely states as well. The state of Iowa, I think just barely. This will be under 15 points. This is going to be north of a 10-point win for Trump in Iowa. I am very confident in that. I am also very confident Trump will win the state of Ohio, likely around 10 points or a little bit over. But again, I don't think it'll break that 15% barrier, so that'll just be enough for Ohio to be a likely Donald Trump state. Similarly, I think the state of Florida will also be like that, where this could be anywhere from like a 5-point win to a 15-point win for Trump in Florida. The polls have been all over the place. I think Florida is going to show up for Trump in big numbers, but it is a presidential election. Voter turnout will be higher than usual. I do think Florida is going to go for Trump probably like 8 to 9 percentage points, which will be enough to put Florida in the likely Donald Trump column. Trump at 219, Harris is at 208. The state of New Mexico, I'm putting in the likely Harris column. There have been a few polls now that have shown this race to be under 15 percentage points. That is enough for me to put the state of New Mexico in the likely Harris column. That's 213 for Harris, 219 for Donald Trump. And right now we are left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 toss-up states or battleground states that I think are either purely toss-up states or should be getting a little bit more attention than they have been. First things first, the state of Virginia. Virginia right now, I was really going back and forth to include this state because there's been a few recent polls now showing this race to be very close. And both of them are under 5 percentage points, which would characterize it as a lean state for Kamala Harris. I do expect Kamala Harris to win the state of Virginia. I'm not sure if the state will be a likely state or a lean state. It's really very borderline. I'm going to put Virginia right now as likely for Harris, but Virginia is definitely a state to keep an eye on, potentially being under a 5-point win for Harris on election night, because it is getting very, very close in that state, more so than was initially expected. So this is where the electoral map, I think, really begins, that Harris and Walz have 226, Trump and Vance have about 219. Now we're down to the remaining 7 battleground states that I believe will decide the 2024 election. And this is where I'm going to start showing you where the polls are in these states. First, I'm going to start out west with the state of Nevada and then go to the state of Arizona. So the state of Nevada right now is an exact tie in the real electoral politics polling average. It has been a Trump lead by about 2 or 3 points for a few weeks. Kamala Harris in the last few weeks or so have jumped up and taken a little bit of a lead here. A poll by Insider Advantage has put this back to a tie race. This state is very, very close, going to go down to the wire. I have no doubt in my mind Nevada will once again be one of the closest states in the 2024 presidential election. This one is really a coin flip and can be decided very, very closely. For a while, I've been giving this state to Donald Trump, and my gut feeling is saying Donald Trump will win the state of Nevada, but it is just so incredibly close right now that I think it might be a state that Kamala Harris wins something like 50.1 to 49.9. It's just, this state is so incredibly close, and I think Harris right now is barely favored to win Nevada, but it's just so close. It's looking more like 2020 and how Nevada turned out, where it was about a 2-point win for Biden. And I think something like that could definitely be the outcome, where it's just incredibly close. But Nevada is definitely one to keep an eye out for. Next, we're going to go to the state of Arizona and its 11 electoral votes. We're going to look at the polls really quickly. In Arizona right now, Donald Trump is up by 0.5% in the state of Arizona. This is one that's very, very interesting. Trump has been up back and forth in a few of these polls. He's taken a little bit of a lead in the polling average, starting to improve his numbers. Harris's numbers have remained relatively consistent for the last few weeks or so. And I think right now, Donald Trump is narrowly favored to win the state of Arizona by about 1 percentage point, maybe a little bit over. I think Arizona is going to go for Donald Trump at this time. It's just Arizona and Nevada are so incredibly close right now. And I want to give Nevada to Donald Trump, but the polls right now are so incredibly close. Actually, you know what? I'm making an amendment. I think Nevada will go for Trump, but it is so incredibly close in both of these states that it's so tight. It could really go either way, and it's so tough to tell right now. Next, we're going to go to the state of Georgia and its 16 electoral votes. The state of Georgia right now, Donald Trump is up in the polls with 0.2% in the polling average. Trump has been leading here for a while, and then the last few days or so, there has been 3 polls for Harris that have been very good for her that showed her up 2. up 2, up 1, and then a tie. This is definitely becoming a very, very close race in Georgia, one that honestly was not too expected to be that close. When Trump versus Biden, Trump was leading by about 3 or 4 points. When Harris first joined the race, Trump was up by 4. It got close to about a point or so, and now it's down to 0.2. This race will be very close. Harris has definitely rejuvenated a lot of Democratic support in Georgia and hope in Georgia. I think right now Donald Trump is narrowly favored to win Georgia by under 1% of the vote in the tilt column. I feel pretty decent about giving Georgia to Donald Trump. I think there's enough of a Republican push lately in support behind Governor Brian Kemp and Donald Trump kind of joining forces to win that state for Trump. I think Trump will win Georgia, but it's going to come down to the wire and be a very, very incredibly close state. So right now, Trump is at 252, Harris is at 226. Now we're going to go to the state of North Carolina and its 16 electoral votes. And what a surprise North Carolina has become. This is a state that I thought Trump would honestly, even though it's a swing state, I thought Trump would be running away with it a little bit more. Right now, it's 47.9 for Trump, 47.3 for Harris. It is a 1-point race or a 2-point race in every poll since the beginning of August, and it's very, very close. There's definitely a lot of undecided vote left, and in 2020, the poll showed a very close race here, and the undecided vote voted for Trump and split for Trump at the end. I think that'll happen here. I think Trump will win the state of North Carolina. I think Trump will actually win in a little bit of a bigger margin than expected. I think Trump will win North Carolina somewhere between 2 to 4 percentage points, which will put it in the lean Republican column instead of the tilt Republican column. But North Carolina is definitely one to keep an eye out for, and is getting very close as the election continues to be very close. Next, we're going to go to the 3 main Rust Belt states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. These 3 states that flipped in 2016 for Donald Trump, giving him the presidency, and then flipped all back for Joe Biden in 2020, giving Biden the presidency, I believe will once again decide who will be the next president of the United States. We're going to start first with the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin and its 10 electoral votes, this is one where it's a very, very close race. And, I mean, aside from one poll from Bloomberg or Morning Consult, which I personally view, in my opinion, as an outlier, had Harris up 8. I don't believe that's accurate at all. American Greatness had it a tie, Rasmussen a tie, Bloomberg, again, I just mentioned that, the Hill to Emerson, 1 point for Trump, Trafalgar, 1 point for Trump. I think this state is a 1-point race right now. It is incredibly close. It could easily go for Trump or Harris. It is super, super close. And the whole reason it's 1.4 for Harris right now is this 8-point lead from that Bloomberg poll. So I think that's heavily skewing it right now. Wisconsin is so close, so incredibly close. This is one where I'm actually breaking from the polls on this one and narrowly giving Wisconsin back to Donald Trump. I've seen for a while now the polls have been showing Harris outperforming Trump in the state of Wisconsin. And I honestly believe for a while that Wisconsin will go for Harris for a while now, but I think just seeing that Bloomberg poll being the outlier that it is, I think Trump is actually narrowly ahead in Wisconsin. Wisconsin's polling has often been very, not unreliable, but very tricky to gauge when looking at the presidential election in 2016 and 2020. Trump outperformed on election day and outperformed the polls both times. I think that'll happen again. Enough so that I think Trump will end up winning the state of Wisconsin on election night by under 1%. I'll go even further, under 0.5% of the vote. I think Trump will win the state, something like 30,000 votes or less. Trump will win the state of Wisconsin on election night. That gets Trump to 278, which does mean Donald Trump would be the next president of the United States. But we still have 2 states remaining, and I want to go over them. The state of Michigan has 15 electoral votes. Michigan right now has Kamala Harris up 1.1% in the polls. There's only been one poll recently that has Trump leading, and that's Epic MRA at 1.4746. And this is just a state where I think Trump and Harris are running relatively pretty even in the polls. Harris is getting closer to 50% of the vote, though, giving Michigan is more the Democratic of the 3 Rust Belt states. It's definitely getting closer, and the trend is narrowly. It's kind of tough to tell, but you can see the trend is getting a little bit closer, that Harris's numbers have peaked and are starting to go down, and Trump's numbers are starting to slowly go up. I think right now, if I were to make a bet, that Michigan would very narrowly go for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump, but Michigan is certainly going to be a very close race as we move into the final weeks of the campaign. Michigan is definitely getting a lot closer. I think Harris is favored to win this state at this time. The final state we'll be going over, the state of Pennsylvania, the state that in my prior videos I've said is the most important toss-up state and swing state in this election. And it is incredibly close. For the first time, Kamala Harris has actually taken the lead in the polling average in the state of Pennsylvania. Trump has been leading for a while. It's been very close. But Harris has taken the lead. And now the numbers are starting to go back down again as well. It's back and forth. It's very close. Trafalgar is Trump up 2. The Hill has it as a tie. Bloomberg has it up 4. Insider, Trump up 1. Rasmussen, Trump up 1. Quinnipiac, +3. I don't think a state could get any closer than it is right now in the state of Pennsylvania. The back and forth, the up and down, it's so incredibly close. I think my gut instinct, this is purely gut instinct on this one, is I think Pennsylvania is going for Trump by under 1 percentage point, similar to Wisconsin. There's not like extra data that's showing that Pennsylvania will go for Trump. This is purely me going off of what I think my best judgment is on this state. I think the momentum is frankly on Trump's side in the state of Pennsylvania. I think he'll outperform the polls in Pennsylvania like he did in 2020 and 2016, enough to give Pennsylvania to Donald Trump by under 1 percentage point. And I mean, when you look at the electoral map, I have right now Donald Trump at 297, Kamala Harris at 241. I have Donald Trump winning the presidential election in 2024 by the absolute thinnest of margins, essentially by the skin of his teeth. I mean, under 1% in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada. Under 1% for Harris in Michigan. Only under 4 or 5 percentage points in North Carolina. I can't stress this enough, whether you're a fan of Donald Trump or a fan of Kamala Harris, or whether you're a fan of third-party candidates like RFK Jr. or Cornel West or Jill Stein, whichever candidate you support or party you support, I can't stress this important message enough. This election is very, very incredibly close. And I think literally one vote could decide this entire election. So if you're going to vote, make sure you do. If you're not sure if you should vote, you definitely should vote, because one vote may decide who wins this election. That's how tight this one is. So that'll do it for today's video. That is my prediction. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give this video a like, click subscribe, share with your friends and family, and stay tuned as I'll be posting a video now until Election Day, every single day leading up until Election Day, including my Senate prediction, which will be coming out tomorrow, September 2nd as well. So please come back for that one if you're interested in that. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in a future video.